Bethany was like, "Oh, what's your episode on?" And I was like, "Oh, well, there's this like Armageddon thing." And she's like, "Are you gonna play the Armageddon song on your ukulele and sing that song? I don't want to close my eyes." And I was like, "Yes, now I am. I am."
Wow, I'm got a tear in my eye, Ben.
If I knew you were recording, I would have played it better, but only slightly better.
From ScienceSortOf.com, you're listening to Science Sort of.
Hello and welcome to Science Sort of. You're listening to episode 315. Our theme this week is planetary growing pains, and we are here to talk about things that are science, things that are sort of science, and things that wish they were science. I am your host, Ryan, and joining me as regular, I was going to say as always, it's not always, but it's as regular, is Joe Batwinis.
Hello. I feel like I was just here.
There's nothing wrong with being regular. Your doctor says you should.
It is important.
Be regular. So, Joe, thanks for keeping us all regular.
You're welcome.
And also joining us.
Joe. Oh, sorry.
Oh, God.
Also joining us from high in the Canadian Rockies, it's the return of your titanium physicist, Ben Tibbet.
Hello, everybody. I'm here with fruit.
Well done, Ben. You have pleased me. Oh, I brought you fruit. Oh, this is like the gift of the Magi. We both brought each other fruit.
Can I just say that the saddest thing about my show is that I always offer the physicist fruit, and at the end, the guest is always like, I cut it out, but the guest is always like, can I have some fruit?
No. You were given the gift of knowledge. You now know the difference.
That's literally what I say, yeah. And then I listen to it, I'm like, oh, I sound like an asshole.
You now know the difference between good and evil, and that will make you as one with God. And we cannot allow this. Right. You are now kicked out of the Garden of Eden that is the Titanium Physicist Lounge where we record. And an angel with a flaming sword stood outside the Titanium Physicist lobby. Wait, what is this show we're doing? Okay.
But I just want an apple.
Guys, let's talk about Oumumua, which is... What is it? Tell me. It's a Hawaiian word. Do you know what it means in Hawaiian?
It means the, what are they called? Hold on. You're going to edit me mumbling out.
You're trying to remember the state fish, right?
It's the scout.
Yes,
that's what
exactly.
It means in
Oumumua means, when I was reading articles about Oumumua, I read that it means scout, and I plugged it into Google Translate to see if they had a pronunciation guide. And Google translates it as first and foremost, which I thought was very cool.
Yeah, it means, I think the syllables refer to someone who's come from away, but is also the first to come from away.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Seems like a very specific thing to have a word for.
I mean, when you're an island nation and ships are often being sent to and fro, kind of makes sense.
I suppose.
I mean, they were a kingdom, Joe.
Yep.
You gotta have a word for scouts in your kingdom.
I mean, sure. Gotta have a bypass.
Oumumua was observed on its way around the sun and has since orbited our sun and is back out traveling towards interstellar space. But there was a lot of talk flying around that maybe it was an alien ship or probe sent here to do something. And I kept seeing all these crazy conflicting stories, and it was happening at a time where I had a lot of this stuff going on, so I couldn't really look into it. But now that I've got my space boys on the show, can you guys just give us a rundown? Tell us what's going on?
Well, it's a big rock, and it's long and cigar-shaped instead of, like, asteroid-shaped. So that's weird.
Sure seems weird.
It's weird that it's not just, like, asteroid-shaped, right? Because things... I mean, Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but things in space have a tendency to become more spherical over time, right? As they float around and get ablated by stuff.
Ablated. Usually things that are round because they're heavy enough that gravity kind of does that to them.
Oh, okay.
They clump together. So, for instance, recently, I think it was a Japanese space probe landed on I might be conflating my different missions, but there was an asteroid in orbit around the sun that was shaped like two spherical balls that were stuck together like a snowman.
Like a rubber ducky.
Yeah,
Hayabusa.
And so the deal is that
Ryugu.
Yeah, if you don't have enough mass, if you don't have enough gravitational mass, your object won't. Because the objects grow bigger by smushing together, like running into each other over time.
We've been doing the show for Ben hasn't been on for nearly a year, and
it's been long enough. It's been long enough for me to forget about smushing.
He already brought back smushing. Should we just end the show, Joe? Should we just walk away from this?
We'll see y'all next week for a whole lot more science.
Sort of. Smushing. All right, go ahead, Ben. Smush us some more info.
If it's not heavy enough, there isn't enough force to kind of squish them together into a new shape. And so you can get these elongated shapes. But the mystery of Oumumua is that we really don't have much data on it. It's fairly small as far as these things go, and fairly far away as far as these things go. So really, the only pieces of information we have on it are it's not producing radio waves. It is accelerating away from the sun at a slightly unexpected rate. So we expected it.
Can I ask a couple of dumb questions as we get into the deeper discussion?
Yeah.
Okay. Am I correct in saying that most of the actual like cigar-shaped rocky images we're seeing, those are all just artist reconstructions?
Yeah. So the reason we know that the reason we think that it's rocky is because of the third thing we know about it, which is that it's kind of the light that's reflecting off the sun from it is kind of getting bright and dim, right? So it gets brighter and then dimmer and then brighter and then dimmer, like something that's kind of spinning. But because it gets so much brighter and so much dimmer, and because the pace that it's doing that is a little bit unexpected, one of the things they think about it is that it might be cigar shaped.
Because when I looked at the actual like image of what had been observed, it's just a dot. It's like a little pixel.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's like, okay, so imagine that you're playing football with me. Okay. Yeah. If you were American and you were, if I was American, I would throw a perfect spiral, right? So down the axle in the middle, it would spin around and it would be nice and stable, right, et cetera. But I'm not, I'm a Canadian, so I'm going to throw it wrong. I'm going to throw it like a basketball. And so it kind of goes end over end. So this way that it's tumbling means that the light it's reflecting off the sun is getting brighter and dimmer at a weird pace.
Okay. Kind of like looking at it like a flashlight through a propeller.
Well, kind of looking at the reflection of the flashlight off the propeller.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Off a slow-moving propeller.
Yeah. But I was trying to think. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Maybe that wasn't a great analogy, but it's where my mind went.
Yeah.
Neat.
So yeah, and we know that it's kind of red color, and that's it. And this is part of what's driving all of this debate. So, for instance, there was everybody's heard that people think it's a alien probe, right?
And by people, that's one dude.
Well, okay,
like,
no.
from my reading.
People think that because the one dude, Loeb from Dr. Loeb from Harvard, proposed that it might be one. And he was interested in explaining why it was moving in the way it is. I mean, it's getting farther away from the sun, so it's slowing down, but it's not slowing down as much as they would expect it to.
It's decelerating, but it is decelerating in a way that if you wanted to
expect it to decelerate more.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of like if you dropped a piece of paper and it didn't fall quickly or something like that. You know, you expected it to plummet, or there was some expected rate of deceleration, and it's not decelerating at that rate. So one thing they looked for was sources of maybe it's like a comet where it's got ices on it, and those ices are heating up and vaporizing on the backside of it, and the kind of propelling it forward slightly.
Right, because as the ice heats up, it would like thermally expand when it turned to gas and kind of propulse the body, the object. Okay. Yeah,
and then so, but they didn't see any evidence of this off gassing. So it might be that it's off gassing, a type of material that they weren't looking for, or it might be something else. So the guy from Harvard, Dr. Loeb, was saying it might be a solar sail, and based on assuming it was a solar sail, he came up with, I don't know, some interesting calculations. I don't know if they're particularly right, but they were fun to read.
And a solar sail is like a giant thing that we could attach to a spacecraft that would capture photon by photon and use the momentum of photons to slowly propel it
Yeah, so photons, light is coming off of the sun. Has no mass, but photons, light has a little bit of momentum. So when the light bounces off your great big shiny piece of foil in front of your spaceship and bounces backwards, that gives your spaceship a little kick. So he supposed that it might be that, but I've seen a bunch of different possibilities. I saw a coherent argument that said that it was probably a bunch of dirty snow that had stuck together.
The whole object was that?
Yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Everywhere reported it as an interstellar object. So can you explain what exactly that means and how we suspect that is what it is?
Yo, I love this. Oh man, I always say this in physics class, and nobody ever likes it. So you know how there's the old axiom that what goes up must come down. Yeah. Anyway.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not true. Every object, every gravitational object, things, if you throw them straight in the opposite direction of them, will slow down as they get further away, as Oumumua is doing. But if you give them enough energy right at the start, they'll be moving fast enough so that even though they slow down as they get farther away, they don't ever slow down to a stop and start falling back towards the object. And so, yeah, you've probably heard the phrase elliptical orbit versus hyperbolic orbit. People are always saying that Oumumua is in a hyperbolic orbit. And what they mean is Oumumua has enough speed that it's got enough energy to escape the solar system. So even though it's slowing down as it gets farther away from this, and this has nothing to do with the slight acceleration or the off solar sail. This has nothing to do with that. This is just saying it's moving so fast that at this moment, even if it weren't for any of that, it isn't going to slow down enough as it leaves the solar system to ever come back to us. So this thing probably came from interstellar space, somewhere else in the galaxy. It's probably just a piece of fluff that's been flying around the galaxy for hundreds of thousands of years, if not more. And it just kind of passed through the solar system, and stuff moving around the galaxy, I mean, including the sun, is orbiting the center of the galaxy fairly quickly. So yeah, it came in, it accelerated as it got closer to the sun, and then it decelerated as it's going away from the sun, and it's going to go off somewhere else. Fun.
Thus, it's an alien spacecraft.
Well, yeah, that's
shining through our solar system.
Actually, it got to within a quarter of an AU, an astronaut, the distance between us and the sun, from us. It got fairly close, not like between us and the moon close, but it got relatively close to us. So, I mean, if it were a space probe, way to go, space aliens. That was a pretty good flight through our solar system.
I mean, I feel like if this was an alien craft, it has to just be some sort of probe that just bounces around from solar system, checking stuff out. Like, it's not a, you know what I mean?
It's just a scanner. It's a surveillance asset.
It's the thing from the beginning of Empire Strikes Back that Han shoots down.
Yeah, it comes in, it does a quick scan of the solar system, checks for life, zips onto the next solar system, beams back a report. A couple 100 years, the aliens show up, kill us all.
Well, that's a good point, because how's it going to beam back a report?
Right.
It's not emitting any radio waves or anything
that we can detect.
It's like that terrible line from so many sci-fi movies that it's a line that always drives me crazy whenever they're like examining the alien ship and they're like, it's made out of something that's not even on the periodic table of elements. I'm like, that's not like a revelatory or helpful statement. Like, if it has to be, if it's a mineral, if it's like a complex material, it's not going to be made of a single element anyways. And yeah, anyway, sorry. Personal pet peeve. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. I apologize for even.
Are you sure? There are some rabbits down there. We could talk about those rabbits. They're pretty cool. Like in Three Body Problem, the Three Body Problem
books. I started
books.
reading it and I couldn't get into it. I'll try again, I promise.
The alien spacecrafts are made out of strong force material. They're made of material that comes from gluons bonding to each other instead of, in complicated ways, instead of electrons kind of valence orbiting each other. So it's much harder and weirder and more dense than our regular crap. Anyway,
so I would like to say that
rabbits. Yes.
What kind of spurred us talking about this is a story that I saw on Science Alert that was entitled "Astronomers Have Analyzed Claims Oumuamua is an Alien Ship and It's Not Looking Good." So it was written by Michelle Starr from earlier this year, kind of reporting about a study published in Nature Astronomy called "The Natural History of Oumuamua," and that was published by the Oumumua ISSI team. I don't know what ISSI is. Do you, Ben?
No, not off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this in the past, but it seems to be a trend in astronomy that these papers have so many authors that it can get a little ridiculous. So I guess they're publishing as teams now, which certainly makes that section of the paper less clear.
Oh, it's the International Space Science Institute.
Okay, cool. So they looked at all of the various factors regarding the claim that Oumuamua may be an alien craft and determined that, shock of shocks, it wasn't or isn't probably. But it's also, it's leaving. So one of the cool things I thought that this story, the news article touched on, is it's possible that these kind of objects are common. This is just the first time we've seen one.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they're getting ready to bring another new telescope online, the National Science Foundation's Large Synoptic Survey Telescope. Do you know anything about this, Ben?
I don't. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So it sounds like there's going to be a telescope that has the potential to find more objects like this. And it's sort of the thing where if we turn this telescope on and there are 20 of these things flying around within the next couple of years, then it's a common thing and we have more opportunity to study it. And it's also possible that this truly is a rare once in a galaxy sort of object to see flying past our neighborhood. And this was it. So either way, I think it's a really cool potential for what comes next for folks who are interested in studying strange interstellar objects, coming by for a visit.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to address two things because it's actually a good opportunity to talk about them. When you ask, why would a respected scientist astronomer say, "Oh yeah, maybe it's aliens"? Aside from the fact that everybody's always wondering if it's aliens, even scientists, why would somebody even start to wonder that? And it kind of has to do with how improbable it is that just a random piece of fluff flew right through the middle of
Are you saying it's fluff because you think it's like a snowball, or are you saying it's fluff because rocks are fluffy in your worldview?
Yeah, well, both. But so essentially, you can look at how rare how unlikely it would be that something like this traveling on a hyperbolic orbit passed right through the middle of our solar system. And you can use that rate of occurrence, which is to say we've seen one since we started looking around capable of seeing one. And you can use it to calculate how densely packed our galaxy must be with this kind of stuff. And the short answer is you do that calculation and it's kind of impressive. You would have to say, oh, it's so unlike either a galaxy is full of stuff like this, or this might be one of these things that's so rare that you can expect maybe it was intentional. But the second thing I want to address is a lot of the listeners are probably saying, oh, well, I mean, what else could it be? It's a rare event. Obviously, space isn't full of these things, as if we know what space is full of. And then you could say, well, what else could come from interstellar space? And what's it called? Go through the eye of the needle, like Oumuamua has. And the answer is, we think that Oumuamua is probably something that formed in an early solar system, maybe not unlike ours, out of a protoplanetary disk. So essentially, while the sun is forming, while the sun is new, you end up with kind of a disk of gas and dust and little grains of stuff that forms and spins around the sun, kind of like all the planets are in our solar system. And over time, these kind of stick together and make planets. And that's how planets form. But the interesting bit here is that they don't just stick together. The thing that's driving their evolution is often gravity. You know what gravitational slingshotting is?
Yes. Well, I think I do. And so now everyone's rolling their eyes. So I think let's just go ahead and have you explain it and save us all the trouble.
It's a feature that you get when there's more than 3 objects feeling each other's gravities. Essentially, one of the objects can steal a little bit of the other object's energy and go faster. But when one of the objects is tiny, like the Voyager space probe, and the other object is big, like Jupiter, it can steal a lot of energy and end up going really, really, really fast as a result, getting thrown out into interstellar space.
But it is slowing Jupiter down when it does that.
Yeah, but just a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying, like, there's a limit how many times we can do this before Jupiter just stops and everything goes crazy.
Oh, yeah, well, okay.
We have to be careful then. Think of the consequences of
I think there's more mass in Jupiter than there is that we in the rest of the solar system that we could make interstellar probes out of. But you're right. But actually,
you made a better point than I was making. So,
but you've actually brought up a really good point, which is that we have done this Oumumua thing to several human-made objects already. Not to throw probe stuff. It's just that we don't have rockets powerful enough to get any of our stuff out of the solar system. The way we got Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 and the Pioneer probes moving as fast as they is it the Pioneer probes? I think it's the Pioneer probes. Anyway, the only way we got them to move them as fast as they are to get out of the solar system is they used gravitational slingshotting from the gas giant worlds. It's the devil's in the details. It's rocket science getting it right. But the idea is that these big planets can throw little stuff out of the solar system and do it all the time. In the formation of the protoplanetary disk, when planets start to form, this gravitational slingshotting happens quite a bit. It stirs up the protoplanetary disk and kind of enables stuff to bump into each other a lot more. And the thing you said about slowing down is actually pretty interesting because you can get migration of these giant planets from the outer solar system closer in. So like Neptune and Uranus were farther out in the solar system when they formed than they currently are and migrated over the course of the formation of the solar system. So effectively, they were at a wide orbit, and then little protoplanets and meteors and asteroids and stuff, baby comets, stole their energy and got tossed way out into essentially the Oort cloud or potentially interstellar space. So what we think is that Oumumua is probably like a protoplanetary object. It's like stuff that stuck together out of one of these protoplanetary disks. It's stuff that could have ended up part of a planet eventually, but didn't. It probably got too close to maybe a baby gas giant or a baby ice giant or something, and their solar system's version of Neptune took it and chucked it out into interstellar space. And this activity happens a lot in these protoplanetary disks. So yeah, I mean, it's feasible that the galaxy's full of crap like this.
Well, and my understanding of the asteroid belt in our own solar system is that was probably a planet that was starting to form, and then the size of Jupiter prevented that from happening. Or at least that's what I've heard. That's what I've read. I don't know. And so, to me, hearing you say that, it seems entirely plausible that the formation of the biggest gas giant in a solar system might also be accompanied by preventing the formation of a smaller rocky planet, and therefore you've got your giant gas giant right next to a bunch of rocks that can sling out of the solar system.
Yeah, sure. I'd buy that. I mean, that's essentially what we're talking about.
How much are you going to give me for it if you're going to buy it?
$7,000.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Joe, you heard it. You're our witness.
I wrote it down.
They're Canadian dollars.
Oh no! Curses. All right, now Ben, play Signed, Sealed, Delivered to take us to our next segment.
Okay. Okay. Next segment. Hold on. Give me a second.
Put him on the spot.
I know, right?
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Ryan.
You've been quiet for a little bit. Are you thinking about what you would drink if there were aliens?
Yep.
Well, then we should talk about what you're drinking in our next segment. What are we drinking?
Sounds like a plan.
Play us out, Ben.
Okay. We speak in the store, and I'm a sensitive boy. You see markedly more, and I'm oozing surprise. But it's late in the day, and you're well on your way. What was golden went gray, and I'm suddenly shy. And the gathering clues can afford to be choosy, and I'll sneezing darkly in the dimming divide. And I have read the right books to interpret your looks. They were knocking me down with the palm of your eye. Na 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 na.
Thanks, Ben.
That was outstanding.
Ukulele.
It would not be an episode of Science Sort of if we didn't also talk about what we are drinking. And I am invigorated from the music from Ben, but I'm also going to press upon Ben to go ahead and tell us, now that he's put his ukulele aside, what do you have, Ben?
Yes. Okay. Actually, you know, I saw in the store that they were selling Tiger Malt in
had that on the
Cranbrook.
show before.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna get some for the next show I'm on, but I didn't have time to go get some. The deal is that I was in a Grand Fondo recently. Well, I didn't bike the full Grand Fondo. There was like a medium version of Grand Fondo, but I've been training all summer to like
what
it's
that?
like a really long bike thing. So I biked 100 kilometers, and
That's
when I was
roughly
training,
6 miles, Joe.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's like a century, but for Canadian weak people.
anyway, so
Good job, Ben. That's
We're proud of you,
farther I
Ben.
could bike.
I was talking to my my dietitian about it, and she was like, "Oh, you need to hydrate and you need to drink lots of sugar." Because I was like, "I start shaking uncontrollably after about an hour of biking. What's up?" And she's like, "You need more blood sugars." So she was like,
sugars.
"You should be drinking like Gatorade, or here's a homemade Gatorade recipe." So she gave me a homemade Gatorade recipe so I could make it myself, and it's fun, but it's lots of sugar. So I'm drinking that right now because I found some in my fridge.
What flavor is it?
It's orange juice flavored.
So orange.
Because it has orange juice in it. It's orange juice and lemon juice and a little bit of salt and then about a half cup of sugar.
So is that orange flavor or yellow flavor?
No, it's orange like an orange.
But there's lemon too. So there's some yellow in there. Gatorade is color flavored. It's not flavor.
It's either blue or purple or yellow. Except the melon one, which is it's like the perfect color of a cantaloupe, and everyone.
I've got a question about your expensive American Gatorade, which is like, how do they get so many colors out of one alligator? You'd think it would only like.
No, Ben, you don't understand. You don't understand. It's to help the alligators. It's for them, not made of them.
I thought it was to help you run away from the gators.
No, it's to aid the gators.
Oh, that checks out.
Slow down.
It is Gator Aid.
Gatorade.
So it's to aid the gators. It's to help the gators.
Why would we want to help the alligators?
Because they kept dying during football practice.
Oh, did Steve Irwin invent this?
No, it's a University
in American football. Listen, I only understand Canadian football. In American football, there's like booby traps and alligators.
The booby traps are called humidity and dew point.
I see.
And a thing in America we have called two-a-days.
I'll never understand American football terminology.
Two-a-days are where you make young men practice a vigorous sport in the heat twice in a day, and sometimes they die. And so do you reconsider whether or not the sport is giving them concussions and damaging their brains for the rest of their lives, or do you invent a sports beverage to help them get through it? And we invented
Ben may be missing a crucial piece of information. About Gatorade.
The University of Florida, which is one of the schools we've built around a giant stadium in northern Florida, has a football club called the Gators.
Oh, so they're letting the Gators into the university.
It's really hard to teach them to walk on two legs, but once they get that down, they're pretty good. Yeah.
I don't think you should have to walk on two legs as long as you can do calculus.
And you got to hold the ball in the front feet.
Oh,
did you guys see the video of the alligator climbing over a fence?
Yeah, they can climb.
Yeah. Well, are there fences in American football as well?
Yeah.
You know what they should do is they should put the football inside the alligator's mouth, and then no one will try to take it out because the alligator will bite them.
Well, yeah, that's what Deflategate was about.
Oh.
Because they were biting it and it was deflating.
I'm learning so much.
Yeah. True facts. I'm having I'm having a beer.
Nice.
I've had a beer in my fridge for a while. The last time Joe and I recorded, I'd already done a drink segment, so I had this beer ready. Joe, I've been saving 2 different drinks that I've had ready, and both times we've recorded recently, we did the drink segment in a different style, and I haven't got to have them. So one of them wasn't already in the fridge, so it got punted, and this one was in the fridge, and so it gets drinking. Upland Brewing Company in Bloomington, Indiana. They even say Bloomington, Indiana, comma, Midwest, comma, USA. So I always love pointing out the region. And they have what they call their Side Trail IPA series, which is I guess where they just experiment with their IPA recipe by trying different things. And this one's called Beyond Resin because they put a bunch of very like resiny, piney hops in it. And I saw the can and I was like, I like hiking, and I haven't had this brewery on the show before, so I'll call that a win.
Is piney hops a thing? Is it like a hybrid between a pine tree and a hops plant?
It's just some hops impart a very piney flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So like some hops give a really grassy note, some hops give a really herbal note, some hops give what would you call a really dank note, because remember hops are a cannabinoid. Actually, local plug right now, the National Arboretum here in DC has I guess they're called exhibits, has an exhibit up right now, or maybe some plantings. I don't know exactly the correct term for it, but it's called the Beer Garden, and it's a bunch of plants that are used to grow beer. It's in the National Herb Garden. It's called Beer Garden, beer like you've never seen it before, and it's all the plants that get put into beer. Like, and when I say all the plants, like not just the 4 from the purity law, but like historic plants that were used in beer brewing and modern plants that are used in like adjunct beer brewing. It's a really cool little like small area that you can walk around before touring the rest of the Arboretum to learn about the process of beer and all the different hop varietals they have out.
Do they have a lime tree?
Ben, they've got so many different limes right now. I'm looking at one that I took a photo of called the Citrus Unshiu, the Okitsu or Satsuma mandarin in the Rutaceae family.
Oh, those are good.
Yeah. So
that's my favorite orange.
That was right near, so past the beer garden was a giant thing of all the different kinds of peppers and chili peppers in the world. So I took a photo of that and sent it to Abe. And then just past that was a Satsuma tree. I took a photo of that and sent it to my buddy Jesse.
You know, in Canada, those Satsumas are a Christmas tradition. In Western Canada, there was a company that would import them from Japan, and they'd arrive in time for Christmas. And so it's a traditional Canadian Christmas end of year treat, these Satsuma oranges. So when Bethany and I went to Japan last year, we were really excited because they literally had them everywhere. You could go to a grocery store and just buy them. They were amazing. I was so excited. So we ate like 7 a day each. And then we bumped into my friend Katie Mack, who's on the Titanium Physicists podcast. And I was like, oh, this is the first time we'd ever met face to face.
She got a book coming out soon too, right?
She sure does. It's on the end of the universe.
We're gonna do a Ben Asked and cut that out. And what are you having, Joe?
Okay.
That was a long story that ended in Ben saying, "Please cut it." So we're just gonna cut it.
Sometimes you don't know where something's gonna go.
But we're not going to cut the part where we talk about the thing we cut, so everybody could just wonder what we were talking about.
Clever.
Anyway, I am having a butter beer from Ozark Mountain Bottleworks in Branson, Missouri. And I'm going to try to open it.
Oh, I was like, what is that noise? It's you opening.
That's me attempting to open it and not cut my hand open. Anyway, let's see how it is.
So this is like if Harry Potter was a redneck, he would have been having like Ozark butterbeer. Like what?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very butterbeer-y.
I don't know what that means.
I know.
Does it taste buttery?
It tastes like maple syrup is what it tastes like.
Here's an actual question I have.
Okay.
Was butterbeer a thing before Harry Potter, or is it an invention of J.K. Rowling and the Potterverse?
I feel like it's gotta have been a thing. What's in it? Let's see. That's the wrong side of the label. It doesn't have a standard nutrition facts label.
Well, you know what's in it, Joe. It's 2 ingredients.
Butter and beer?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's not.
There's a thing called buttered beer,
Aloha extract,
which is old.
I found that too, Ben, from the 1500s.
Yeah.
There's apparently a recipe from 1588, Joe.
Wow. Well, there you go.
Taken from a cookbook published when Elizabeth I was Queen of England. That's Queen Elizabeth II's mom, you guys. That's how long she's been in charge. 1588. Wow. Yeah.
It's quite a while.
I know. It's impressive. She's the longest serving monarch in British history.
You guys shouldn't talk about the Queen because she's got this person that all the Americans heard about called the Black Rod who will come and like hit you with a rod.
I've never heard of that person. I thought you were going to say James Bond and I was going to play along, but then you said something I've never heard of. The cookbook from 1588 was called The Good Huswife's Handmaid for the Kitchen.
All right.
And I'll send you the recipe, Joe, and then you can make real butterbeer for the next time you want to come on the show.
Sure, do that. Send it to me.
It's got actual beer in it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun episode.
Oh, bam.
All right. Well, hopefully drinking real butterbeer doesn't cause Joe to break apart into thousands of pieces and miss Earth entirely. But if he did, he'd be a great subject, he'd be a great topic of conversation for our next segment coming up next.
But dig it. I could stay awake just to hear you breathing. Watch you smile while you are sleeping, while you're far away and dreaming. I could spend my life in this sweet surrender. I could stay lost in this moment forever. Every moment I spend with you is a moment I treasure, yeah. I don't want to close my eyes. I don't want to fall asleep because I miss you, babe. And I don't want to miss a thing, even when I dream of you. The sweetest dreams will never do. I still miss you, babe. And I don't want to miss a thing.
You were recording, right, Ryan?
Hell yeah, I was.
Oh, yeah?
We have a new theme song as far as I'm concerned. Our second topic for this episode is about how breaking apart asteroids, a la the movie Armageddon, might not work because of this little thing, you may have heard of it, called gravity. What's going on here, boys? My rocket boys, my space boys.
Is that a thing now? Are we the space boys?
I kind of want you to be.
Space boys.
If you're down with it, I kind of want it to be a thing.
I feel like we need some branding work, but I guess we can make it happen.
Spacey boys.
I mean, branding. It's not rocket science. Oh wait.
We gotta get hip with the McElroys. Everything's boys.
Well, they're the Trace Horny boys, and I don't think we want to go that direction.
No, the characters in one of their D&D games are the Tres Horny boys. And it's not even the McElroy boys who are the Tres Horny boys. It's two of the McElroy boys and their dad.
That's fair. All right.
I have lost this thread.
It's okay. It's West Virginia's more successful podcasters than me. So we don't need to get into it. But I do want to talk about busting apart these Astro Boys. That's what I'm calling the asteroids now. If we're branding everything with the boys.
Is that BOI?
Yeah, of course it is. Astro Boys.
Yeah, so this article from Scientific American is talking about some modeling that some gents did at
Charles Elmire et al.
Yes.
Is the first author of a study that was published in Icarus, which is a great name for a journal that I did not know existed. And the study was called A New Hybrid Framework for Simulating Hypervelocity Asteroid Impacts and Gravitational Reaccumulation. And then we started off learning about this using the Scientific American story that Joe was just talking about. Back to you, Joe.
Great. Yeah, I was looking for that, and it was at the end of the article and not at the beginning of the article where it was supposed to be. Yep. Anyway, so basically the problem statement here is that one of these days an asteroid's going to come hit Earth, and we might not have Bruce Willis to go up and save us, so we need to come up with our own strategy of getting rid of it, and hopefully it doesn't involve having to send a person to go up and detonate a thermonuclear bomb on the asteroid.
That might be what it finally takes for us to start funding manned missions again, though.
I mean, maybe. So this study looked at it and basically found that what they did is they didn't shoot a nuke at it. They shot a 1 mile wide rock at a 15-mile wide rock at 11,000 miles an hour, and then modeled that collision to see how.
Can you put 11,000 miles an hour in context? I have no conception of how fast that is.
So
really
take
fast.
like 11,000 miles, and then you do that in like an hour.
Yeah, but compare it to Superman's faster than a speeding bullet. Like, is this a Superman level speed?
It's way faster than that.
So it is faster than a speeding bullet.
Yeah.
Is it more powerful?
Because a bullet's like a couple thousand feet per second.
That's not miles per hour. So you just changed units on me, and you're still
I'm sorry.
And you're still
right.
doing it imperial, so I can't just convert it times 10 in my head. You're not helping me, Joe.
You're right.
Okay. So the Earth goes around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour.
Again, that's not a number that means anything.
Okay,
The Earth goes around the sun in a year.
Here's the thing. Like, how fast was that? How fast was the flying wedge that hit the rock in their simulation?
11,000 miles an hour.
11,000 miles an hour. Okay, so what we're talking about is an object that's moving fairly slowly compared to like planets as they go around the sun.
But like a bullet is like 1,200 to 2,800 miles per hour, and this is going 11,000.
Okay,
how's
so
that?
Order of magnitude faster than a bullet. Thank you.
Yes.
That's what I need.
Okay.
I appreciate the
All right.
clarification.
You're welcome. I was trying to type very quietly when we were saying that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just typed.
It's only been literally a decade of doing this show, gentlemen. I
Lord,
guess, Ben, it's your decade in a month, Joe. You have a little bit longer till your decade anniversary, but
Yeah, I think it's like 2024. Yeah. But anyway, so 11,000 miles an hour, order of magnitude faster than a bullet, a mile wide rock hitting a 15-mile wide rock. And they modeled that collision to see what happens to the big rock, which theoretically would be coming to hit Earth. And basically, there have been models done on this kind of thing before that showed that the target asteroid gets obliterated and everybody's happy because Earth is saved. In this model, what they found was that basically it didn't break apart at all. I mean, it got hit, it took some damage, but it generally held together. And then all the ejecta from the collision basically got sucked back into the gravity of the big rock, and it just accumulated back on itself, which means basically we still get hit by a giant asteroid maybe. So that's not great.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, the asteroid is there because of its own gravity.
Right.
Okay. So one of the issues here is that gravitational energy is enormous. Like, the gravitational binding energy, the amount of energy released as the different constituent pieces of matter glom together to make this meteor or whatever is crazy. Like, we don't have enough atom bombs to split the Earth in half in a way that will keep it in two pieces. Like, it's a ridiculous amount of energy involved. So when this thing hits this other thing, if the results of this collision, if the parts aren't moving fast enough, gravity's just going to pull them all into a ball again.
So, all right, I hate to ask this question because it's just playing into the Armageddon thing, but isn't there a whole thing in the movie Armageddon where, like, you can't just hit it from the surface, you have to drill into the center? So how much of the Armageddon thing is, like, they actually did put a bomb, not just a impactor, in the middle of this thing and blew it apart as opposed to just slamming it with something?
I mean, it's kind of the same idea. You're injecting a ton of energy into...
But isn't there a directionality here? Like, what? I guess, okay, so...
Yeah, I would say the bomb is, like, riskier in this case, right? Because the bomb is going to blow the asteroid apart in, like, every direction. Or, it's going to find a weak direction and blow it apart in that direction, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. So you might not be blowing it apart in the right plane where it actually splits apart perfectly in two halves and misses Earth.
Right, you might accelerate it towards Earth. You never know.
Yeah,
you want everything to go sideways, but in a bomb it might go in you might accelerate some stuff. But I think one aspect of this that Joe is kind of hinting at is like there's a mix of types of energy here, right? There's like kinetic energy of large objects, and then there's also like heat. Okay. So when you hit your big rock with essentially a giant axe, a large portion of the energy can go into splitting it in half and making those two halves go in opposite directions. You want as small a ratio of that energy turning into heat as possible, because heat, like heating up the inside, isn't going to keep your rock from hurtling towards Earth. Only like sideways momentum can make the rocks, two pieces of rock, miss Earth. So putting a bomb in the middle of it, most of that energy is just going to go into heating up the insides, and very little of it relatively is going to go into splitting it in two. So I think that the plan of essentially firing a giant axe at the meteor so it splits in two parts that go in opposite directions and misses the Earth is probably a better plan than Bruce Willis's.
Yeah, and so we talked a little bit about another study that was done on that on episode 283, which is the Hammer mission, or Hammer spacecraft, which is the hypervelocity asteroid mitigation mission for emergency response, which is basically shooting a heavy spacecraft at an asteroid or shooting a nuclear bomb at an asteroid, in both cases to deflect said asteroid or break it apart. And then this article references an upcoming mission that NASA has planned with Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab called the DART mission, which is the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, which is supposed to launch I think it launches in 2021, but gets there in 2022. Maybe it's slipped and it's launching in 2022 now, but either way, it's actually a real mission that's been funded. They're going to launch it, right?
Launching in 2021, reaching its target in 2022.
Okay, yeah. So they're actually going to build this thing and launch it at a two asteroid system. There's a big asteroid and then a little asteroid
orbiting the bigger asteroid.
Orbiting
and they
the bigger
called it
one.
its moon. Are we okay with that, team? I don't know how I feel about calling the littler asteroid the moon asteroid.
Why? What's wrong with that?
I don't know. We had this whole thing about planets being planets. When are moons moons? I don't know. What do words mean with you people? You space people, space boys.
Moon just like natural satellite?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything's a moon, as long as it's like natural.
Yeah.
Then we got to get a chemistry guy in here to talk about, teach you space boys what for natural means.
Right. So, I mean, if you launch a tree into orbit, that'd be a moon.
As long as it wasn't full of chemicals.
Tell us what DART's going to do. Tell us what this double asteroid redirection test is all about.
All right. So DART is an impactor, and they are going to shoot this spacecraft at the small moon of Didymos, which is the big asteroid. I guess they're calling them A and B. But anyway, they're going to shoot at this asteroid.
Come on. You got it. Why do they call them Didymos?
Because Didymos is Greek for twin.
And which is where we get our word?
Ditto.
There you go. You did it. You got
there. What?
Yep.
I didn't know that, but it made sense when I said it.
There's a whole biblical connection, too. It's Thomas Didymus, the Lost Gospel of Thomas, one of the 12 apostles.
Gotcha.
Doubting Thomas, he's the guy who
he was in space.
He was the skeptic of the 12 apostles, and he was forever damned to history for it.
Apostles in space.
Jesus threw a dart at him.
For more information on Didymus, consult your local library. Okay, so keep telling us what's going on, Joe.
So they're going to shoot this asteroid Jacob Stump texted me and I was distracted. So they're
send your hate mail to Jacob at sciencesortof.com.
Yep.
I haven't got to say that one in a while.
Anyway, they are going to shoot this spacecraft at the small moon, and basically it's just going to be an impactor, a kinetic impactor. So it's just going to slam into the surface of the small asteroid, and then they will be able to measure if they disrupted the orbit of the small moon around the bigger asteroid, and see if they, disrupted it in the way that they thought they would.
The idea here is that, like, if we think of, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm just trying to understand, we have this tiny little spacecraft that's got an ion engine so that it can accelerate for its entire time going towards this tinier asteroid.
Mm-hmm.
It hits the tiny asteroid, and then the gravity between the tiny asteroid and the bigger asteroid is kind of like a bungee cord. So we're kind of like stretching the bungee cord and hoping that we can use that visible bungee cord to use the smaller asteroid to kind of pull the bigger asteroid out of the path it was on, so that we can use a much smaller impactor to hit the smaller asteroid to then deflect a larger asteroid that's traveling with it as a test case for how we might deflect an asteroid coming at Earth.
What?
No?
I haven't read the details of the DART mission.
That sounds like to me what they were thinking of doing.
But isn't the spacecraft gonna get exploded when it hits Didymos B?
Oh yeah, no, it's gonna get obliterated. I read it.
Why isn't this just a simple momentum problem? Like, okay, so Didymos B is gonna slow down. The orbit of Didymos B and Didymos A is going to change by a fairly small percentage because the space by the momentum canceled out by the spacecraft, and then Didymos B is gonna orbit at a slightly smaller orbit.
Yeah, so it's testing a bunch of different things. It's not just testing the idea of smashing into an asteroid to see if it changes the momentum. It is testing a camera system that'll allow it to like measure the asteroid as it approaches, and it'll pick out a impact site on its way in. It's also got basically an autonomous nav system that when it gets closer, because we can't really image these things right now because they're pretty far away. But as it approaches, the spacecraft is going to image both asteroids and then use an autonomous navigational system based on the imaging to center up and track in on Didymos B, the small one, and basically use that imaging software to track in autonomously once it's within like an hour of impact. It'll have a much clearer view of the two rocks, and it'll be able to track in that way. So it's testing that, and then it's also testing the ion propulsion system.
It's pretty cool.
That was pretty cool.
I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, so that ion propulsion system, it runs on electricity basically, and it's gonna accelerate the DART to about 4.1 miles per second speed, which is pretty quick. And then it's also got some pretty neat solar arrays, which are a rollout solar array. So when it launched, it was all folded up. It was a pretty small little satellite. But then these rolled up solar arrays basically unroll themselves in orbit, and they're almost 9 meters long each. So those solar arrays provide the electricity for that ion drive. So it's a pretty neat little satellite that'll be testing a whole bunch of different technologies on its ways to its doom.
I'm into it. I think that's really cool. I'm like this little satellite. It's plucky.
Yeah.
I think they should put an ion drive with these cool solar panels on Didymos B, like land it and then point the ion drive out and then slow Didymos B's orbit until it smashes into its buddy.
Yes. I 100% agree.
It's really hard to land on asteroids is the problem.
No, but Ben, if we're ever going to achieve an expanse like inner solar system, we're going to have to land some rockets on some asteroids and spin them up for artificial gravity, right? Or spin gravity.
Yeah.
So I love where your head's at. So it sounds like we're on board with the idea that breaking apart a giant rock in space doesn't necessarily work because gravity's just going to pull it back together. And it sounds like we're on board with little DART out there flying away to sacrifice itself in the name of figuring out if we can stop these Astro Boys from hitting us.
I think the name of the game in the long term is if you have a good sense of where these asteroids are going, you can kind of perturb them early enough that you don't need to, fly a giant 1 mile long wedge into them at 11,000 miles per hour. Because that's, it's...
Well, the idea is you hit them early when they're really far away, and a very slight disturbance will cause a big enough down the line shift that they'll miss us.
Yeah. And I don't think I don't think splitting it in half would be necessary in that case. In fact, you wouldn't want to split it in half then. Yeah.
Ben, what if we did that, and then suddenly Oumuamua is back, and it's guiding the asteroid straight for us.
We'll fire a dart at Oumumua.
And when that dart got there, Ben, there was a little note on the surface that said, "This rock is your PaleoPOW." And it turns out the aliens have been listening to us the entire time.
Dope.
And if that was the case, we might feature them. We might feature them on our final segment of the show, the PaleoPOW.
It's too bad we don't broadcast this show, and so that's such an implausible thing.
It's on the internet.
Play us into the next segment, Ben.
Okay. Hold on. What? I thought I had that other song there. Where is it? I think it's there. Hold on. Okay, good.
That's it.
Why are there so many songs about rainbows? What's on the other side? Rainbows are visions, but only illusions. Rainbows have nothing to hide. So we've been told, and some choose to believe it, but they are wrong. Wait and see. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. I don't know. How was that?
Loved it.
Kermit.
That was the first song I learned to sing as a little baby child.
Aw.
Yeah.
What a cute kid you were.
Yeah.
What happened?
I
Kermit
know.
the Frog sing along.
Oh. It was because, from what I remember, the story was whenever I had to ride with my dad, he had a bunch of tapes in his car for the tape deck, but the only one that he felt was appropriate for me was the Muppet movie soundtrack, and that's the first song on it, so that was the song I heard the most often.
All right.
I love the implication that he was listening to the Muppet movie soundtrack before you came along.
Yeah, he had the tape already. Like, it's a good soundtrack. Like, he's got taste.
Oh yeah, that was back before like VCRs, because and then the only thing you could get about a movie was like its soundtrack. Yeah, that made sense. Your dad must love the Muppets though.
I now love the Muppets because, some of my earliest memories. And I guess there's one of the songs in that soundtrack that has the word ship in it, and as a child I would just say shit. Apparently
Nice.
that was adorable. And now I say shit, and nobody thinks it's adorable. So I don't know what happened.
I say shit. I say all sorts of
We know, Ben. That's why I have to edit.
I feel bad for you for this episode.
Yeah.
It's going to be a rough one.
The PaleoPOW is the final segment of the show where we delight in feedback from the listeners. I've been trying to find more positive terms for that.
Good.
Joe, you want to go first?
Oh, do we want to start with a patron thesis?
I think we should, because we've talked about enough stuff.
All right. Buckle up. Here we go. So we've got a patron thesis, and the only thing I know about this person, I know two things. One, they chipped in to help out the show. So that's great. Thank you very much. And for that, they get a patron thesis. The other thing I know about them is that they go by Jerm. Not Germ like Germ, Jerm like Jerm. So that's their name, Jerm.
Do you think his name is Jeremy?
Could be.
I mean, could be.
Jeremiah?
Yeah. Jeremiah was a bullfrog. Okay.
Well, no, Kermit.
So our patron thesis.
No, Kermit was a frog. Joe.
Right. Jeremiah was a bullfrog.
That's true. It's not easy being
There's
green,
multiple
I
kinds
hear.
of frogs. That's my understanding as well.
All right, Ben, what do you want to do for a thesis for Jerm? Here?
Hyperbolic orbit something.
What is a hyperbolic orbit?
A hyperbolic orbit's like Oumumua. That's how fast it's going. So it'd be like,
what if there was an orbit shaped like the Hawaiian state fish? The Oumumua.
I don't know. How do they taste?
I don't know if you eat them because I think they're an important. I don't know. Ben, Melican.
They're probably important because you eat them all the time, right?
What else?
Eat?
All right. Darts, hammers, Oumumua.
Giant axes
spacecraft.
flying through the sky.
Giant axes.
Ben, what about something like hyperbolic Aloha orbits? Like coming by to say hello and
like
goodbye.
Aloha orbits.
What about
Like
interstellar
coming by to say
asteroids?
hello and goodbye. That's a great. Come on. No.
No, I'm
that's not bad.
flabbergasted. That's really good. Yeah.
Thank you. Hyperbolic Aloha orbits. : Go, Joe.
Why not just Aloha orbit?
No, Ben was really excited about the hyperbolic part.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't want to
I was
take
going to
Kind
put
of a
that after.
hyperbolic
I was going
guy.
to put that after the colon.
Oh, okay. So Aloha orbits.
No, I think we're coming up with a new kind of orbit called the hyperbolic Aloha orbit.
Okay.
As opposed to just saying that all hyperbolic orbits are Aloha orbits.
Well, I think we got to come up with something nonsensical on the back end that justifies. That's where I'm at. That's where my head's at. We're in the let's justify our nonsense.
Gravitationally bound, time symmetric. Yeah, time symmetry. That's good. Perturbations.
We
we got to work in planetary defense somehow, right?
We do have to work in planetary defense somehow. What about like darting by to say hello? But we spell by B-Y-E. So it's like it would be like capital D-A-R-T hyphen ing and then by to say hello. Because we're saying goodbye to Dart because it's going to say hello to the asteroid. I just put it in the Slack, Joe. I know you still need to see it.
Right. No, I this one I was able to pick up. Oh, we've added an acronym too. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Only one.
Joe, I go to the Hill for work now. I have to use TLAs. It's
Yeah. Good. It's good.
I mean, it's short for one of our theses, but I think that might be to its strength. I mean, Jerm is a short name.
Yeah.
This is the shortest name we've ever had to give a thesis to, so I think we give them a short thesis.
Yeah.
Thesis.
Okay.
This is singular.
Okay.
What do you think?
How? Wait, isn't how you say hello in something?
Well, I'm going to click over from Hawaiian to detect language.
Yeah.
Google just
I'm
says,
thinking of NIHAO. NIHAO in Chinese.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
But apparently Google is translating that to
1/10
it
of a
is
dong.
good.
Oh, it is good. I'm getting Vietnamese money units.
Yes. So if we can pick up one more pun if we can figure out an N and an I to go before hyperbolic Aloha orbits.
Oh, okay.
And more puns are good. Something interstellar, hyperbolic orbits.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say necessity for impact hyperbolic Aloha orbits. So the 4 would just be lowercase, so it doesn't get included in the NIHAO.
Nascent. Yeah.
Nascent interstellar.
What's that? Nascent. Hold on.
New.
Nascent
Means new, right?
Oh. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Nascent interplanetary hyperbolic impact orbits.
No, interstellar, right?
Oh, interstellar. Yeah.
All right, so Jerm, this is your thesis. Nascent interstellar hyperbolic Aloha orbits, NIHAO, darting by to say hello.
God, that's
perfect.
That's funny enough to be a real thing.
That's what we're going for. Jerm, thank you so much for being a patron. If you are interested in being a patron and supporting whatever this is, you can go to patreon.com/science-sort-of and sign up at any of our wonderful levels that make no sense monetarily but are fun sciencey numbers for you to choose from. If you don't like our fun sciencey numbers because they screw up your credit card statement, I totally understand. And Patreon allows you to put in whatever number you choose. So you can put in a number, and as long as you're above whatever tier that you're trying to get into, so even if you're above it by just a few cents, you will be in that tier. And if you're above the Avogadro's Army tier at $6.23, you get a thesis. So we're almost caught up on our list of theses to distribute. So we've almost got a full... I guess if we run out and we have to go a few weeks without one, we'll just call everyone who came up to this point the freshman class, right?
Yeah.
Science sort of theses.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. What do you got for us, Ben?
I have a new Canadian iTunes review.
From Canada?
From Canada. Canada has its own
leave...
special section of iTunes. What? Yeah.
Are you allowed to leave anything other than 5-star reviews in Canadian iTunes?
Well, this has been kind of translated from Canadian. Technically, it's -5 sorries. But yeah, you're never allowed to say less than 3 sorries. So it's usually 4 or 5 stars.
Ben, I had a Canadian apologize to me today because they asked on Facebook for volunteers and somebody volunteered. And then I also was like, I'm available to volunteer if needed. And they didn't need me because they only needed 1 volunteer, and they apologized for not including the number of volunteers needed. And I was like, you don't have to apologize. Like, I don't have to do anything. Like, I said I would do it, and you were like, no, we're good. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm going on with my day. There's no need for an apology in this transaction. But I love you, Canadians. You guys are great.
If you Americans want to feel slightly worse about everything, Canadians often apologize sympathetically. So we'll apologize when we think that we're owed an apology. So if somebody steps on your toes, you say, oh, sorry, because you expect them to realize that they've stepped on your toes and give you a real apology. So often when Americans are like, oh, Canadians apologize so much, I punch them in the face and they apologize. It's like, no, that's not really what was happening.
I've never heard that before. And
Me neither.
That is fascinating. Joe,
Yes, we're clever people.
You're from Maryland. Can you get in touch with some people at Johns Hopkins, see if we can upload a sound file to Dart that will say sorry right before it hits the...
I actually have a friend who works at at the APL.
I think we just need to make sure that the asteroid knows that we're sorry when we hit it. Otherwise, it might not respond in kind with its own sorry.
I hear a Canadian wrote the original screenplay for Alien, and the subtitle is "In Space, No One Can Hear Your Sorry."
It wouldn't surprise me to learn that on the front of the Dart spacecraft, there's like a label that says "Sorry about this," or something like that.
Yeah, that would be a nice thing to do. What's the iTunes review say, Ben? Because I gotta tell you, the American iTunes reviews haven't been filling me with joy in the Marie Kondo sense. I'm ready to say goodbye to them and thank them for their service, but it seems like the Canadian iTunes reviews are of a different sort.
Well, sorry about that. This one says...
Ben, I'm sorry.
No,
Did I do it right?
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, wait, when does this end? I don't understand. I still don't understand the Canadian
Caught in
sorry.
an infinite for loop.
Okay, so this one is titled Smart, Funny, and Ethical. 5 stars. I've been listening to this podcast for years and enjoy it greatly. Episode 292 had Ryan put his foot down on abusive behavior, and that inspired me to finally write a review. I'm behind in episodes, but I'm working on catching up. Keep up the great work, everyone. All right.
And that was from Hawkbox, which, again,
nice.
That sounds like a person I want to hang out with. If they've got a box full of hawks.
Well, only one hawk. You don't want them breeding.
Hawks box. You think what if they studied Hawk's genes and they just spelled it like I don't know. We appreciate the review.
Like BACH? Is that what you're saying?
Okay. There's a type of gene called a Hawk's gene, HOX.
Okay.
And it's a type of gene that typically it encodes for like an entire morphological unit of an organism. So like in flies, there's a Hawk's gene that codes for the leg, and then there's like a Hawk's gene that codes for the antenna, and you can insert...
That makes sense because flies also fly like a hawk.
Yeah, I think that's how they came up with it. So like you can like swap the code and get like a fly to grow a leg where their antenna should be, because it's just it's like a code snippet of DNA. It was something I really struggled with in college, and I might be describing it wrong right now. And so,
if you're describing it correctly, it's pretty trippy.
But I think, I imagine.
I think I've seen photos of the
a box full of hawks.
Well, no,
our friend Hawkbox. Send us in a photo of your Hawkbox. I would like to see this. I'm very interested. I'm more interested in that than I am in the Hawk's gene that I just explained badly.
I'm curious as to what you put your foot down about.
I didn't see a review of you putting your foot down. I don't know. Did you stop using the timer duck? Is that what you're talking about?
293.
Oh, no, that was when,
libations and liquefactions.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realize you were asking me.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Ask that question again, Joe. Sorry, I was.
I'm curious as to what you put your foot down about, Ryan.
Give it some feeling, Joe.
You know what, Ryan? I'm tired of your ship.
I guess I'll just use the first time you said it when it was authentic.
You said a cuss.
Yeah. You can bleep it.
So what happened, Joe, was we used to follow any Twitter account that interacted with us in a positive way just because we were trying to grow our following, and, follow back was a way to do that in the early days of Twitter. And we ended up following somebody that I was told from a former guest of the show, hey, why are you following this person? And I was like, why? What's going on? And they're like, oh, this person has been harassing women scientists. And I looked into it, and that was super what was happening, and it was really not cool. And I got pretty fired up before we recorded an episode, and I wrote a little statement about why that wasn't okay, and read it just so I would get all the words right in the moment, and then kind of said, hey, we're not going to follow people just because they say something nice to us, because we got to be a little bit more careful. We got to not amplify voices that are doing negative things out there, and it was important to me then and remains important now, and that I think is what he's referring to with me putting my foot down.
Gotcha. I do remember that episode now.
So yeah, it's just it was about supporting scientists to be public figures talking about their work in public without being harassed constantly for it, especially because of their gender identity or whatever. So yep.
Good for you, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, you can say it was ethical. I was just pissed off that like don't do that. Like, it's just Ben. It's just rude. You understand?
It's so rude.
You understand rude versus politeness?
Yeah, yes. Honestly, so rude.
So yeah, it was just I was in a moment of peak where I wrote a screed on why that wasn't okay, and I'm glad I'm legitimately glad it made an impact on some folks out there. So it was one of those, you could say that it was what's the thing they always accuse people of doing when they do the right thing because it's the right thing to do?
White knighting?
No, not that one.
Virtue signaling.
Yes, virtue signaling. So you could accuse me of virtue signaling, but like, I was legitimately really upset and pissed off, and I wrote this thing and read it on the air, and I'm glad I did it because I know it was the right thing to do. And so, call it whatever you want. I'm glad it had the intended effect with some of our audience, and I thank them for writing an iTunes review. Hawkbox, thank you. So, to wrap things up, my PaleoPOW comes from Robert Z. And this is a little bit of an older email, but it has to do with gaming. And the subject line is Paleo Gaming ? And then the first line is not really Paleo Gaming. Okay, so you lied to me, Robert. You lied to me. But that's okay. Not really Paleo Gaming, but I want you guys to read this. My name is Rob, and I'm a longtime listener since episode 27, Ben.
That's pretty good.
Although, strangely, I've never listened to episodes 1 through 26. I've listened to guys talk about gaming in a couple of episodes, and specifically Ryan mentioned Risk in one of them, a game I don't actually like that much. I play this game called Warlight, and it's basically Risk online with friends in a strategic and mentally stimulating environment. I have a good group of guys who are always looking to add new players, and I would love to play with two cool dudes. I've been listening for the past 2 years. Patrick and Charlie are certainly invited if they would like to play as well. If you're interested, you go to the above link, blah, blah, blah. He gives us his username. I love listening to SSO. Frequently find myself talking to my car stereo while listening to you guys. So it would be pretty cool to play a game or two online. Let me know if you're interested in playing. Thanks, Rob. Rob, I would say instead of just talking to your stereo, you could like turn on the record function and record a voicemail and send it in. But I kind of wanted to do this email because Ben and Joe, I think of the current sort of rotating roster of co-hosts we have, you are the two gamers.
I game. I do. Sometimes I play video games.
And so I just kind of thought, like, Rob, I'll go ahead and tell you now, like, I'm not going to sign up for this Warlight game just because I have a strong disdain for online multiplayer games, and that's just me. Also, the disdain is born out of a risk of getting completely lost in being addicted to them, so I just have to be a little bit careful. So
yeah, that's why I never started playing World of Warcraft.
Right, exactly. It's like World of Warcraft is like, oh, that's a game I would love like too much, so I better just not
play it.
Do it.
Yep.
So yeah, I appreciate the invitation, even though I don't believe I will be taking you up on it. But I also just kind of like thought, hey, you guys play any good games lately? Play any cool games out there?
I've been playing F1 2019.
What's that?
It's Formula One. Formula One,
okay.
2019. It's a racing game.
Is it true? This is something I've said, so I should check if it's true. That at full speed, a Formula One car is producing enough downforce that it could drive like on the ceiling, like in Men in Black.
Oh yeah, and then some.
Okay. How's that as a game? Is it like? I really like racing games where you have to like build up your fleet of cars and like pay for repairs. Like Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed, that was the first one that really sunk its hooks into me. Is it like that, or is it a different setup? How does it work?
No, so F1 2019, you start as just a driver in Formula 2, and then you get promoted to Formula 1.
Formula 1 and Formula 2.
Slower. And so it's like the feeder series.
Okay.
So you just get signed as a driver on one of the 10 or so F1 teams, and you race through the season on all the current tracks against all the current drivers. And it's pretty cool.
Now, in Formula 1, I'm an American, so you'll forgive me. Like, you don't just turn left, right?
Correct. Yeah, you turn left and right.
Yeah, that left and right.
And you go racing in the rain.
You turn right and left, right?
Correct.
So right, then left, then right.
Correct.
Okay.
Wouldn't you want the same? No, that's not true.
Aren't words fun?
Words are weird. When I do rallies, when I started doing rally, me and my navigator quickly discovered that you can't use the word right as a confirmation word anymore. You have to just force yourself to say correct.
I mean, Ben says I. Have you tried that?
No, haven't tried that.
No, that would be not I, is what you would say instead of no.
Not I.
That's not how it works. You have to say nay, like a horse.
So what about you, Ben? You played any good games lately?
I played Red Dead Redemption most of the summer. That's the second one.
I'm jealous.
Yeah. Did you make some bear stew?
That. It's I bought it so I could play online with my sister, and it's really fun writing. Essentially, what we'll do is we'll play online, and we'll go and steal like somebody's wagon, because you can steal things from the AI non-player characters, and so they'll be riding a wagon. So you'll steal the wagon, and then you can get on the wagon and like roll around and talk about how our kids are doing and how school is, and then roll the wagon off a cliff. It's good times. But yeah, no. More recently in video game news, I listened to the audiobook. Yeah.
Video game news starring Ben Tippett. Ben, we're going live to the scene of Red Dead Redemption, where you have redempted something while red. Tell us what's going on.
Okay, so it was I listened to the audiobook, so I didn't read it, but I listened to the audiobook of the official novelization of Minecraft, and it was written by
oh yes, I know what you're talking about. This is the one that was written by the guy, the dude. Yeah, you know who.
Max, not Max Brooks.
Yes,
Max Brooks.
Yeah, Max Brooks. Max Brooks.
Okay.
Former
so
guest
it was
of the
written
show.
by Max Brooks.
Say former guest of the show, Ben.
Former guest on our show. It was written by Max Brooks.
Former guest of the show.
Former guest of the show, Max Brooks. Writer of, he wrote World War Z and How to Survive a Zombie Apocalypse. I do not believe
that's how that title is pronounced.
Okay, well, that's your opinion. You didn't invent the language or the alphabet.
He's American. I know how he would pronounce it.
It's a world in the world we pronounce it Zed. Yes.
Ben, I'm sorry for the way you pronounced it.
Yeah. Well, you should be.
It doesn't work, Ben. It doesn't. Your system you just taught me does not work. Joe,
listen to me very carefully about this audiobook I listened to.
I think you did it right.
Thank you. All right. Tell us about your audiobook, Ben.
I'm sorry,
Ben.
The audiobook of the Minecraft video game, written by Max Brooks, is narrated by Jack Black, and it's perfect. The book is written for like kids in grade 6. I've never had a stupider time in my life than Jack Black reading me the novelization of a video game book for kids in grade 6.
And specifically Minecraft.
Minecraft! He's like, everything around me is a square. I almost fell off my bike.
Do you play Minecraft, Ben?
I do, well, I kind of want to now that Jack Black and Max Brooks made it seem so fun.
It looks so boring.
I mean, you punch things and then they fall in your pocket.
Yeah, I'm with Ryan on this one. It seems real boring.
I didn't think about it in those terms.
Yeah.
I've been tempted to pick up Life is Strange 2, because Life is Strange was good, and the follow-on was pretty good. Life is Strange 2 has some mixed reviews.
I played The Witness for a while. Just because it was developed by the guy who did Braid, which I think Jacob and I have talked about, but I think is a really fantastic and interesting and kind of subversive game in a lot of ways. And Witness seemed like the guy who did Braid doing a version of Myst, and I feel like Myst is a high I've been chasing in gaming since I first played Myst and Riven, the sequel to Myst. And Julie for a long time was really confused why I always said Riven, the sequel to Myst, but like that's what was on the box. It said Riven, the sequel to Myst. Like that seemed like the full title at the time. I didn't quite understand.
Have you played Abduction from the creators of Myst?
I did play Abduction for a while.
Is it good? Because it's on my wish list.
Abduction's a little more narrative than The Witness, and so for the way I don't have a ton of time for gaming, and so the problem that I had with Abduction versus The Witness is like of the Abduction, I just had more to remember every time I tried to play it again after not playing it for a little while, and it made it harder to like leave and come back. Whereas The Witness is more of just like a open map puzzle game. And so it was a little easier. So they're both good, actually. I think Abduction is actually a really strong game. The visuals are actually pretty stunningly good, and it's from Cyan Worlds, the same folks who brought us Myst and Riven, the sequel to Myst, but did not bring us Myst 3 because that was Ubisoft, and that's one of the reasons it's been hard to get for a long time. But it finally showed up on Good Old Games and Steam, so I might actually get Myst 3. And then the other game I've been playing is State of Decay and State of Decay 2, which are open world zombie games, just because sometimes after a long day you just gotta kill some zomboys.
They're scary.
Damn it.
I did it, Joe. Well, my problem is, Ben, that have you ever played in the State of Decay games, Ben?
No, well, they sound scary. Why?
They have a really aggressively non-forgiving autosave feature where, like, if a character that you're playing, because it's sort of a RPG where each character has their individual stats, and the stats improve over time as you play that character, but characters get tired, so you're constantly switching out characters in your community so you can give people time to rest and heal. And if your character is out in the world and they die, the game autosaves instantly, and so that character's dead.
Oh wow, that's brutal.
It's brutal, but it actually makes you play as if you're really trying to survive. Like there's no way to hit F5 and then F9 to go back 10 minutes and save that character. So you actually have to be a little bit precious with the way you play the game, and it's incredibly frustrating. And I am the sort of video game perfectionist where like you manage different communities across the game, and so you can only manage 3 different communities at once. But every time like I lose somebody, I'm like, forget this, and I just like want to delete that community and start fresh. So like I can't get a community to last longer than a week because I want to do it right.
Let me tell you why I'm mad.
I want to win the apocalypse because I've read your papers, Ben, and I know it's possible.
It is. Spoiler alert. I want to tell you why I'm so mad at Red Dead Redemption. So in the first Red Dead Redemption, you don't make it out alive. You die, and then your son ends the game in a long epilogue.
So it really was a State of Decay.
Yeah. And then in the second, the same thing happens. But in the second one, when you get double-crossed and die, they kill your horse. And you have to like hold your horse's head in your hands while it's dying. And I'm so mad because that horse didn't deserve to die. Do you hear me? Whoever was involved in Red Dead Redemption, that horse didn't. Oh, yeah. And in Overwatch, there's a relativity guy. That's fun. Anyway.
I feel like BioShock Infinite, we could have some fun with that for as a science sort of thing, because that's got some weird wonky physics in it. And then Joe, I got to tell you, man, I think Firewatch is still in my like top 5 games ever.
Firewatch is good.
Well, but Joe gave me a copy, so that's why.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I watch Bethany play it a lot.
It's beautiful. I love that game. So, yeah. Game Corner. We did it. We told people about games.
Do you want me to play Still Alive from the what's it called, soundtrack?
Well, I mean, Joe and I have been talking about whether or not we need to come up with a Bracula Media Network live. What is the style of Adventure Zone live role playing game?
Oh yeah, that'd be fun. An RPG.
So Joe's gonna be our DM if we want to develop this show, Ben.
Did I sign up for that? Did that happen?
I'm sure you did off mic, but I'm gonna put it on mic.
Oh, great! Cool.
I don't know.
I just picked up an adventure to try and DM my first adventure for my friends.
You put me on the spot as if I pushed you into this, and you're like, well, I already did buy this thing for it.
Yeah, but I haven't done it yet.
Okay.
I don't know what I'm doing. Am I going to run the same campaign for you and my friends here in real life, my IRL friends?
No, that's fair. We'll buy you a different campaign. Ben, who's your character for Joe's campaign of awesome science-ness?
So is it what classical D&D? What's the format?
Yeah, I guess so.
I've only ever played 5e, so I'm not ready to branch beyond that.
It'd be, you know what? A human bard.
What?
Yeah, that's it.
Terrible choice.
What?
Bard is
No,
just-
it's good.
don't be
Okay,
a
so
bard.
what's wrong with bards? Bards are great.
I don't know.
Everybody
I
hates
take that.
bards.
You're definitely a bard.
God, everybody's got opinions about bards.
You're definitely a bard.
So that's exactly what a bard would say, Ben.
I mean, he did spend half this episode singing to us.
I'll do it some more.
And you know what? And you know what, Joe? And you know what, Ben? Wait, hang
This
on.
was
hang
a
on,
triumph.
No, stop. Ben,
I'm
Ben.
making a note here. Huge success.
Stop. I have a plan.
It's hard to overstate
Ben,
my
I have a plan.
satisfaction.
I want to end the show. Let me go through with my plan, please.
Fine.
Okay.
What's your
Okay.
plan?
I'm gonna say a line, and then I'm gonna do the typical outro, and then you guys are gonna say sort of, and then we'll go into it was a triumph. Okay.
Okay, I need the words. I need the lyrics for this.
Can we do that?
Okay,
Well,
look-
we don't all have to sing it.
Oh,
It
I
seems.
used to, engineers love singing the song. I say let them sing.
Oh no.
I had a math class full of engineers once, and I sang this at the front, and they all just spontaneously started singing along. Happiest teaching memory.
Okay, cool. So, yes, Joe, Ben did sing to us a lot this episode. And you know what? Just like a bard, it was magical. But you know what wasn't magical this episode? Because we talked about a lot of science. And when you come back for the next episode, we're also going to talk a lot more science.
sort of.
This
This was a triumph.
I'm
I'm making a note here. Huge success.
It's
It's hard to overstate my satisfaction.
Amateur science. We do what we must because we can.
For the good of all of us, except the ones who are dead.
Oh, I don't know that chord.
Keep up.
But there's no sense crying over every mistake. You just keep on trying. You run out of cake, and the science gets done, and you make a neat gun for the G flat. What the f- is
Still
G
alive.
Anyway, you know what? I don't think sing-alongs work on.
Visit sciencesortof.com for show notes, links to all the stories we talked about, and ways to interact with the hosts, guests, and other listeners. Science Sort of is brought to you by the Brachiolobe Media Network of podcasts, with audio engineering by Tim Dobbs of the Encyclopedia Brunch podcast. That's all for this week. See you next time on Science Sort of.
Oh, you know what? I should play that Country
how
Roads
about now?
song. Let's see.
Absolutely. If you can play Country Roads, we have 2 new themes. It's going to be a very long theme song.
Almost
Oh, wait, no,
heaven.
that's Dirty Old Town. Hold on.
West
Hold on.
Virginia.
Hold on. I'm
Okay.
loading it up. Okay,
I'm
hold on.
ready. I'm ready
Picking
now.
Up. What kind of... Wait, Joe, add this to the list of evidence that Ben is a machine. He had to load a song before playing it. We just
I had
put
to
the
load the
cartridge in.
webpage.
Buffer.
Almost heaven. West Virginia. Oop.